There are many toys in this world. One of the toys is making a lot of noise and will have to be broken. Suddenly, the voice of a little girl sounded and asked if he was the boss of the tower. Having received an affirmative answer, the girl became furious and screamed that the owner of the tower should die. Well, what kind of toys are they? The tower boss was surprised, grabbing the girl by the hair. Have to, and break it. Suddenly, a hunter with a sword appeared. Unfortunately, the quality of the toys is determined only by Baphomet, who is the owner of the tower. Baphomet was very happy when a new toy appeared, but unfortunately all the toys quickly broke. And the same fate awaits this hunter. Baphomet stood in front of the door, which only opened inward and never let him out of the tower. Baphomet was always very bored, since people rarely came here, and the door of the tower did not let him into the world of people. Suddenly the phone rang, which fell out of the girl's hands. Baphomet had a thought, but I didn't have time to form it because another hunter appeared who wanted to kill the tower boss and become the best hunter. But Baphomet cannot be defeated, and the hunter begs for mercy. But suddenly Baphomet wonders what this thing is and shows the mobile phone of his previous victim. Hunter explains that this gadget is opened using facial recognition technology and explains what a camera is and how to listen to music. Baphomet listens to a new entertainment as if spellbound, and grabbing the sword, the hunter again attacked Baphomet. The monster asks him not to interfere, and he thinks that he has a lot of things left over from previous toys, but he never looked at them, and he decided to study the life of toys through their things, and the more he studied them, the more Baphomet wanted to be in the human world. Again, there was a howl in the tower, which means someone is coming again, and again you have to break the next toy. A hunter has appeared, but not just an adventurer and an elite fighter. Baphomet was surprised, but also delighted, because he hasn't encountered real power for a long time. Baphomet was overwhelmed by long-forgotten emotions of battle. The fight was equal and finally real. Blow follows blow, but the young hunter reflects and attacks from all sides. Baphomet begins to fear that he might lose the fight. Baphomet jumps sharply towards him and is about to strike. But this turns out to be a deception. Approaching the maximum possible distance, he notices how the guy dodges the attack and slams the boss into the stone floor with a knee strike. Completely succumbing to emotions, the self-confident Baphomet could not imagine that there would be someone who could defeat him. Seeing how a man is about to make his final blow, he is tormented by a feeling of envy. Why am I so jealous of this toy? This thought returns the consciousness of the battle to Baphomet, and he again uses a defensive skill, repelling the attack. Having summoned his scythe, the boss continues the battle with the guy. But every time he manages to avoid his attacks, and also carry out a counterattack. Baphomet hates the idea of defeat so much that he resorts to using his powerful spell. I can't lose. I am the ruler of this tower. I am the master. But even so, you're still locked here. Baphomet is distracted by a girl who appears out of nowhere and allows the man to make his final blow. The boss once again uses his defense, but this guy's strength is incredibly enormous. The pressure from him is growing and growing. Seeing the hunter, Baphomet realizes that he wants to become a man. The main quest to kill the hunter Raven was obtained. The reward will serve as the fulfillment of one wish. Seeing this alert, Baphomet decided to give his best, sometime later. Congratulations, you have completed the Tower of the Abyss. It will soon be destroyed. Raven was still able to defeat the boss and clear the tower. Now he urgently needs to leave this place. But even in death, Baphomet grabs his weapon, and the tower begins to collapse. After clearing the tower, the builders must get rid of the rubble, find the bodies of the dead and explore the area. Now they have already found a huge number of corpses of hunters who died during attempts to pass the Tower of the Abyss. But then they notice the only survivor standing on the ruins of the tower. They ask if the person is okay, why he is without clothes. But I definitely died. Returning to the moment of the destruction of the tower, we see how the almost dead Baphomet gets up and heads towards Reborn to complete his quest. Realizing this, the hunter immediately reacts to the approach of the monster with a spell. But Baphomet cannot be stopped. Engulfed in blue flames, the boss rips out Reborn's heart, and then he doesn't remember anything. The builders continue to question the man they found. To verify their identity, they need to know the name of the survivor. My name? The main quest is to kill the hunter Raven. Was finished. I am Baphomet. This is how the once tower boss was able to be reborn in a human body. Who are the hunters? These are the people who have to fight the monsters that live outside the gates of the towers. Until one day their situation was very meager. But once the first breach of the gate has occurred, this is a phenomenon that occurs when the tower remains uncleared for a long time. And as a result, monsters break out. A third of humanity was then exterminated, and people began to train hunters so that they would become stronger and be able to clear the towers. Baphomet is one of the lords of the tower. A great many hunters died at his hands. Even though he was a monster, he still decided to become a human. And since he was the only survivor, found in the remains of the ruins of the Tower of the Abyss, he was recognized as a hero. People wanted to see the full power of this guy. But alas, after his rebirth, he lost all his power. His career has gone downhill. He went from being the lord of the tower to the rogue of the century. So the deity of the underworld turned into the leader of a second-rate gang operating in some underground quarry. Here's a newcomer to the quarry who wants to earn extra money. An elderly man asks if the boy has done something similar before, to which he receives a negative answer. The main one talks about how the quarry expanded, and that there are many useful resources in it, and the nearby hunters dealt with the monsters that lived here before. The work is being carried out in zones C and D. The guy will have to work in D. The atmosphere there is fun, so you won't be bored. Then Baphomet's gang shows up. They're ordering everyone to disperse, because their boss is coming to see them. The newcomer is told that he should not mess with them, much less cross the road. These are ordinary hooligans who ended up working in the mines. However, the most important thing to fear is the main one among them. The guy is surprised that people like this are allowed to work here, but, alas, there is no other way out. After all, the leader of this gang is very good at his job. The quarry manager distributes salaries in envelopes to his subordinates. Then, it's Baphomet's turn. But alas, his salary is sent to a secret place. Therefore, the gang leader is once again left penniless. However, there is nothing wrong with this, because his comrades are always happy to treat him with something. One of his gang decides to ask where Baphomet's money goes, but in response receives a tasty blow to the face. The striker shouts that this is secret information, and when Henny himself decides to talk about it, then we will find out. With tears in his eyes, the boy apologizes for his question, but Baphomet himself felt the horror of this. Not wanting to keep it to himself, he yells at the entire quarry. And in my head I once again reminds myself that all the money goes to us to pay for a charlatan doctor. Once upon a time, due to his injuries, Henny had to go to the hospital, and he was operated on by one doctor who demanded a large sum for treatment. Naturally, Baphomet had no money then, so the doctor offered him a deal. You will pay with your body. When the protagonist came to his senses, he was already working in the quarry and sending all the money to this quack doctor. At first, things did not go smoothly in his career. Every time he was reminded of his nickname, the Rogue, and constantly harassed with insults. He of course endured, ignored their bullying again and again, and at some point, it became incredibly difficult for him to tolerate the bullying. And then Baphomet just beat up all the bastards. There were more and more people wanting to fight him, but no one could compete with him. So he had a company of small-time hooligans who began to call him their Henim. What could be lower than being a crook? Just become the head of a gang in your career. And yet, this is not the world that Baphomet wanted to enjoy. The hunters quickly got rid of all the monsters that came. Watching them, our hero envied them. He was also angry that he had lost all his powers when he got into this human body. He wanted to be strong and tough, like the hunter he fought with, and not engage in robbery in some godforsaken career. Henim, it seems to us that you are very cool, and the hunters are far from you, the gang members discussed. Baphomet's comrades say that if the hunters had not awakened, they would now be as small-time hooligans as they are. The guys are right, of course, but when you see really strong and tough hunters, you still envy them a little. Hunters shovel money in and don't realize its value. At this thought, the hero's face lit up with joy. This surprised his friends very much. However, Baphomet himself did not even understand how he began to smile. It all came down to the fact that these guys are funny. With this phrase he amused his group, and they began to wonder who was the funniest of them. Baphomet remembers where he experienced similar feelings. When he mocked the toys, he already forgot what fun was. But now he is in a human body, and can feel emotions not only from battles. This knowledge delights him. "Hinnom, do you really have no name?" asked the boy who likes to ask questions. The main character says that he once had a name, but he no longer uses it. Then the friend offers to take his name, because his parents put their heart and soul into him. But they tried in vain. It will be better if it goes to someone cooler. For example, like Baphomet. But Baphomet asked him what the guy's name was. He replied that his name was Cha. Before he can finish speaking, a large-scale explosion occurs behind the guy's back, knocking Baphomet unconscious. Gradually coming to his senses, the hero sees only flames in front of him and does not understand what happened. Looking around the territory, he observes the picture of his comrades dying in the fire. The screams of familiar people and the pain from his wounds shake the hero's mind. Again? Are the toys breaking again? But I was just starting to have fun. Baphomet understands that someone is definitely behind this incident, and he will definitely kill this bastard. At the same time, the hunters are attacked by a newcomer who just started working today. It turned out to be a hunter thief. People thought it was just a rumor that said there were hunters who attacked just for profit. The main hunter, realizing that the two of them will not be able to cope with this madman, understands that it is time to escape. The girl is shocked by the words spoken, especially considering that there are wounded civilians nearby. But right in the middle of the conversation, the boy loses his head. Realizing that there is no chance of a successful escape, the girl, succumbing to emotions, rushes at the robber. However, this turns out to be her mistake, as under the influence of emotions, defense, and coordination, her movements weaken, which makes her more vulnerable. With the second blow, the guy cuts off the girl's leg, opens a portal, and orders his accomplices to take the loot. They are surprised why the boss didn't kill the girl. He replies that her body can bring decent profits in the future. After all, this is a young hunter of S rank. It drives the girl crazy. But shouting doesn't scare the bandits, so no matter how much you try to shout, it won't have any effect on them. After lighting a cigarette, the gang leader decides to examine the body of the dead hunter. The girl does not stop fighting in hysterics and calls for help. But here no one can hear her. "Do you think that if you don't stop yelling someone will save you?" asked one of the bandits. "Forget it, this has never happened before. And if anyone comes, consider that you've used up all your life's luck beforehand," they warned her. Suddenly, the character notices the flying head of his comrade, and immediately another cry from the group of bandits is heard. Turning around, he sees the same gang leader from the quarry. Baphomet screams throughout the quarry, wanting only one thing: to find the bastard who did all this and began to break his toys. And at the same moment, the forgotten system window pops up before his eyes again. The hidden quest is completed. Feel angry at the person. The reward is the desired power. After reading this notification, Baphomet understands that the tower boss's power is gradually beginning to return. Having cooled down his enthusiasm, he rises and goes in search of the person who caused the explosion. He didn't have to explore the mine for long. A girl's screams caught his attention. There were also the scum who killed his toys. Slowly moving forward, Baphomet sees the dead hunter's sword sticking out of the ground. Realizing that he cannot do it with his bare hands, he pulls out this sword. The system does not approve of such user behavior. Using another person's item reduces your power to 0%. But then the system fails and a critical error occurs. Baphomet's passive skill, Weapon Master, is activated. Baphomet came to take revenge for his broken toys. The gang laughs at the hero and says, if he is too old for toys. Not wanting to listen to the mindless babble of the idiots, Baphomet decides to deal with them as quickly as possible. The chief orders the remaining members of the group to take fighting positions and defeat the arrogant quarry worker. only he couldn't imagine that the leader of the quarry gang could defeat his henchmen in a matter of seconds. Having finished with the pawns, Baphomet's gaze turns to the last of the gang. The hunter thief, in turn, is surprised by the guy's style, but clearly has no intention of running away. With a mad smile on his face, the leader attacks the main character. Dealing blow after blow, he asks the hero what rank he is. Maybe A rank? Or C? No, he's clearly above a C rank. No, he is clearly higher than C rank. Having listened to the madman, Baphomet misses one of the attacks and earns a wound on his cheek. Having made sure that Baphomet is also capable of missing attacks, the guy becomes wondering what such a strong hunter could have forgotten in this quarry. Really, too, coveted the loot. But alas, he is going to take the spoils for himself. Therefore, he has no plans to release Baphomet alive. The main character takes a defensive position, preparing to repel an attack. The number of cuts continues to grow. It turns out that the hunter is using a chainsword that can split into smaller pieces, grow in length, and become flexible. An ideal weapon against those who rely only on physical strength. Continuing to receive injuries, Baphomet finally begins to get used to the attacks. And a second later, with a blow from his sword, he was able to block all attacks directed at himself. This confuses the bandit. Passive skill. Fury is activated. In case of heavy bleeding, all skills are increased by 15%. Before he realizes that the attacks were blocked, the gang leader receives a blow to the jaw. Baphomet does not decide to wait until his opponent gets back to his feet and lunges in his direction. But the bandit blocks the hero's attack. He tries to understand where this worker got so much strength. Baphomet swings his sword again. Realizing that this could be fatal, the guy makes a dash to the side. He won't allow himself to be killed just like that. His weapons are specially designed to carry out battles. A little more, and this worker will simply fall off his feet. But looking at Baphomet, he begins to doubt his own thoughts. In front of him is clearly not a person. He looks more like a monster from a tower. Succumbing to fear, the bandit misses one of Baphomet's attacks and loses his arm. Right hand for the guy who was always sent forward. Realizing the pain of the loss on the limb, the bandit starts screaming. The left arm is chopped off for the quiet guy. Another limb was severed. Left leg for the fat guy who always carried food with him. Another limb was severed. Bleeding, the bandit asks Baphomet to stop this. Well, the last leg is here, in the memory of the main character, the moment before the explosion appears, where his comrade says his name. "And you will lose your last leg in Chamin Wu," Baphomet shouts. "Well, now you will pay the appropriate price for angering me." "Who? Who are you?" the bandit shouted. Not daring to answer the last words, Baphomet ends the life of this bastard. But he is not going to stop there. Emotions take over the hero. The system notified that the Berserk debuff, which awakens bloodlust, was activated due to the passive skill Rage. Having finished with the guy, Baphomet needs someone else who can satisfy his bloodlust. Then he remembers the still-living girl hunter. An inner voice tells him to get rid of her, because Baphomet was originally created to kill people. Having already raised his sword over the young lady's head, the hero heard unfamiliar voices of people. The people who arrived look like employees of some organization. They report to headquarters that there are only 2 survivors, and one of them is going to kill the other. Baphomet looks at them and sees the next targets that he must get rid of. One of the guys says that he has already seen this eccentric somewhere, but where? Driven by instinct, Baphomet attacks the new arrivals. They don't have time to react to this, but then a hand appears and sends Baphomet to sleep. The association workers did not understand that this had just happened. In his mind, Baphomet remembers how he gave the order to his subjects to kill all people. Only now the speech is interrupted by Raven, who pierces him with his sword. Sitting in this tower, you had no idea how weak you were, and only death awaits the weak. Waking up from a terrible dream, Baphomet comes to his senses. He remembers that the last place he was a quarry, but he's clearly not there now. Suddenly a voice comes from behind the glass. The man asks if he can be heard. He is also glad that the guy has finally come to his senses. He finally remembers where he saw his face. "How are you feeling, Mr. Rascal?" He talks about how Baphomet took credit for clearing the tower, even though he had no powers. And now he killed their target. That thief hunter. Does he really want to pull something off again? Or did he really kill that guy? Therefore, in order to better understand the matter, a worker from the association conducted an investigation into Baphomet. As it turned out, there is no information about him, as if he does not exist at all. There is no hunter registration status, but it has strength no less than A rank. It is very strange. An unregistered hunter or a genius in the making? Who are you, in fact? Our decision depends on your answer. Baphomet does not decide to say a word, but simply breaks the glass, separating him from his interlocutor. The main character says that the man from behind the mirror does not behave civilly, and that Baphomet does not want to talk to someone whom he does not even see. And the nickname Fraudster was given to him by the freaks, who themselves awarded him the title of hero. He killed the hunter, and he doesn't regret it one bit, and it's not Baphomet's fault, because that bastard provoked him. Even if the bandit somehow comes back to life, the hero will kill him again and again. And if the comrade behind the glass does not deign to show himself, then the same fate may overtake him. In response to his pathetic speeches, Baphomet hears only laughter. This was clearly not the reaction he wanted to hear. After this phrase, the doors open, and the worker who was behind the glass appears. Now he stands in front of Baphomet, and what is he going to do? Seeing this guy, the main character immediately remembered Reborn. They clearly have something similar. This caused him to attack the guy with glasses. But alas. A man in a suit puts Baphomet on his shoulder blades with one movement of his hand. Having pinned the hero to the floor, the man says that he really woke up. Baphomet cannot even move him from his place. This man is damn strong. The man with glasses introduced himself as a representative of the government guild, created to destroy criminal hunters, called Horn. And this criminal has become their target. The guild is certainly grateful that the hero helped them save time and personally dealt with the criminal, but still he bloodily killed 5 people, and that can't just be left to chance. The cuts inflicted on the victims were made with surgical precision. A novice hunter obviously couldn't do that. Of course, unless he has an innate talent for murder. And if you have such talent, then from experience we can say that nothing good will come of it. But since there was no information about the fraudster, the man decided to personally talk to the suspect. This guy was born to do evil, and if he is not stopped now, then later he may become the target of our guild. Therefore, the sprout must be uprooted. Sometime later, at the Central Hunter Institution. Inside the building, there are a huge number of people solving their problems. Some people worry about fate and think that their journey as a hunter has come to an end, while others are simply interested in renting a weapon. Here one of the workers calls the man, number 122. The girl asks how she can help him, and the guy with the number turns out to be Baphomet. Baphomet remembered the events of past days. "Well, are you scared? We can't just go ahead and kill you," said the man. "I really like you. You have excellent instincts, which can help in battles and investigations. Become a hunter of our guild. Use your talent in the right direction." This is how Baphomet ended up in the hunter's establishment. To begin his journey as a guild worker, he first needs to become a hunter. Previously, he could not do this, because in addition to his lack of strength, he did not have a passport or any other documents. But the guild representative resolved all the issues with the documents. Well, registration is completed. All that remains is to choose a code name. Such names are needed to separate hunters and ordinary people, and in no case should it be similar to your present one. The work of the main character will be hard, and he will have to carry out all the tasks secretly, so he needs to make an effort so as not to stand out among the other hunters. But the guy chooses the nickname of the boss of the tower that killed many hunters, Baphomet. The hero's last thoughts were only that people would tremble with fear as soon as they heard this name, because he plans to become stronger than everyone else. Baphomet decided to start his journey by killing wolves. He deals with monsters without much difficulty. But then a werewolf appears, the leader of the pack. He is about to tear the guy apart when Baphomet shouts, "Stop!" The wolf was clearly taken aback. The hero pronounces the words of one of the spells that he possessed before. But, alas, nothing happens. Realizing that there is no point in waiting any longer, the monster attacks the man. True, Baphomet kills him with one blow to the stomach. Leaving the wolf's lair, he realizes that not all his strength has returned to him yet, and only one reason comes to mind: a hidden quest that still hangs before him. Last time he was angry because of the hunter, so he was able to regain some of his strength. Having decided that part of his power was taken away from him, he will return it with his own labor, and not just with the help of quests. Then, a terrible sound comes from behind the guy. He turns around and sees a colleague from the guild with a phone in his hands, and on the smartphone screen the head of the guild, who shouts at the main character for choosing such a stupid name for himself. The boss says that the guy's reputation is already nowhere lower, so he also took the name of the boss of the tower. By the way, based on the results of the investigation, it turned out that the tower was cleared by the hunter Reborn. And things only got worse because one of Korea's top hunters laid down his life to kill Baphomet. But the hero is not interested in all conversations. It is enough to become stronger for others to shut their mouths. Will Baphomet be able to prove the veracity of words in practice? The last thing the head says is that they should meet on Jeju Island. Arriving at this beautiful place, Baphomet's gaze is drawn to the sea. Previously, he had only seen it in pictures on the internet. A guildmate says that he will order a taxi to his destination, but the hero has already run off to look at the blue sea. However, his colleagues say, "Stop disgracing the country," and drag him into a taxi. All new hunters must complete training, and the Island is the location for passing it. The main character does not understand why hunters need instructions if it seems clear what needs to be done. You just need to kill monsters, and that's it. During the briefing, Baphomet saw a man named Ma Sung-un. He was the presenter at Career Guidance. It was the man with glasses who brought him to the guild. Over dinner, Baphomet decides to find out what is going on here, and why the guild member is giving instructions. In turn, Sung-wung asks him to be quiet so as not to blurt out too much. It turns out that outside of work, he is a member of the central institution. At this time, people around are only discussing Baphomet, remembering him as a fraudster. Therefore, the manager asks not to talk to him in the future, otherwise he will be avoided like the plague. Well, the elder went about his business. Baphomet decided to just stand and eat. Suddenly, he hears a conversation from the instructor's table. The others are clearly not happy that he was even allowed here and are trying in every possible way to condemn the guy. But Sung-woo reminds them that this is the government's decision, and attempts to challenge this decision may be regarded as disobedience by civil servants. Realizing this, the other instructors immediately shut up, but suddenly, A-rank hunters appear on the premises of the building. Sung-woo didn't even know they were invited. More precisely, they were supposed to arrive in a week, but the arrival date was postponed. And Sung-woo was not told about this. This group of hunters volunteered to instruct the newcomers. The organization believes that the emergence of strong hunters will have a positive effect on newcomers. Yes, it may have an effect, but not on Baphomet. The hero stands and glows with happiness, looking at the food. And now, having admired it enough, he decides to try it. But then someone pours water on his head. People immediately pay attention to this. The person who committed this act turns out to be Leon, an A-rank hunter. He just wanted to greet a certain Baphomet. The guy standing next to him immediately reprimands him. He says you shouldn't do this in a crowded place. But Leon cannot be stopped. He gets angry only at the sight of the main character. The guy asks for forgiveness for his friend's action, but says that the hero is also partly to blame for this, because he took the name of the monster who killed many hunters. This is a mockery of the fallen hunters. Not wanting to listen to lectures, Baphomet pours his dinner on Leon's head. Sung-woo sees off his last hopes that this guy will ever change. Such a rash act provokes Leon, and he grabs Baphomet's t-shirt. Why are you all going on about this name? He won't rise from the dead just because I use him, our hero asked. These words angered the hunter even more. The hero continued. If you were so worried about the fate of other hunters, you should have killed this Baphomet earlier. Why did you not do this earlier? Didn't have enough strength? Baphomet continued to ask. This was the last straw. Leon prepares to use his power. Making a swing, Leon almost reaches his goal, but someone stops his hand. Fighting is prohibited by the rules. The heroes look at the man who interrupted the fight. And looking at this face, Baphomet immediately understands who is standing in front of him. Yes, this is Raven's little brother. Right now, standing in front of Baphomet was an A-rank hunter with the nickname Griffin. He is also Raven's younger brother. Realizing that Leon was not allowed to do justice, he becomes furious and begins to shout to the whole hall that Griffin is really ready to tolerate this bastard being here. After all, he bears the nickname of the boss who killed his older brother. But Griffin calmly replies that Baphomet is right. If Raven had been stronger, he obviously would not have died during the clearing of the tower. Here, Instructor Sung-woon decides to intervene in the conversation and asks to behave more civilly in public. With obvious hatred, Leon asks why the instructor isn't doing his job, since it's their job to punish scum like Baphomet. Realizing that this is a pointless conversation, Sung-woon apologizes for his mistake and asks Baphomet to come outside with him. At first, he didn't understand why he should go with Sung-woon, but the instructor wasn't going to repeat it twice, so Baphomet had no options but to obey. As he left the building, Griffin followed the hero with his gaze. The first lecture was about learning how to use the system. A beautiful female instructor in the audience was telling me how to properly use that blue terminal window. But the main character was not very interested in this, and he simply tried not to fall asleep. He remembered how this day began, when the instructor led him out of the hall. He said that Baphomet could hit the instructor. Baphomet didn't miss this chance and decided to stretch his fists before the fight. Are you really planning to defeat the hunter? After realizing that it was a simple provocation, Baphomet asks the guild manager how he should handle similar situations in the future. When such disrespect is shown, it is hard not to react to it. Just be patient until you become stronger, the instructor advised. Sung-woon makes Baphomet realize that once he becomes strong, no one will dare open their mouths in his direction. But in the meantime, he needs to behave with as much restraint as possible, as he is still no match for an A-rank hunter. Two guys who look like young hunters are discussing the guy who came to the island with them. They say that they came here in a great mood, but because of people like him, everything has gone wrong. A sharp bang on the vending machine causes the guys to interrupt their conversation and turn their attention to the source of the noise. Shit, it ate the money. If you hit the machine hard, will it give the money back? Baphomet asked. Realizing that they were not welcome here, the boys left quickly. Baphomet won the jackpot, because after his demonstrative hit, even the machine got scared and gave him a free soda, water. By the way, these guys mentioned battles between rank A hunters. Baphomet remembered and decided to go and see it. Arriving at the training room, Baphomet notices Leon defeating one of his comrades. It was his 8th win in a row. Leon sees Griffin sitting and invites him to fight too. The rules are simple. The winner is the one who first rips the blue scarf off his opponent. It is prohibited to use hunter skills. You can only use physical strength and skill. At the top, there are female instructors who are watching the guys. Then Sung-won comes up to them and asks what's going on. They reply that the newcomers have come to watch the sparring. This news makes Sung-won happy. Exactly until the moment he notices Baphomet among this crowd. At this time, one of the girls cannot take her eyes off Griffin. She even wants to ask him for his number. But Sung-won upsets her by saying that this guy is only a sophomore in high school. The fight between Leon and Griffin heats up. The former, in his usual style, tries to provoke his opponent, but not wanting to endure the taunts, Griffin throws a leg kick, which Leon barely blocks. Having dodged the next blow, he gets as close to Leon as possible and starts a series of attacks on the guy. Having waited the right moment, Griffin walks around Leon and rips the handkerchief off his hand. This is how Leon's winning streak was interrupted. Everyone around him praises Brother Raven for his movement and tactics, but he is not going to listen to them and wants to continue fighting, and he chooses Baphomet as his opponent. The main character didn't understand what was happening at all. He just stood and watched, and then they called him to sparring. The judge says that this is impossible because Baphomet is a beginner and Griffin is an A-rank hunter. But Sung-woon gives permission for this fight from the balcony, so the judge now has no right to refuse. Baphomet continues to not understand what is happening here. First they call him to sparring, and the one on the balcony told him to sit quietly below the grass, but here he himself doesn't mind him fighting. In fact, Sung Woon really hopes that after this fight Baphomet will still understand his place and to temper his fervor. Okay, time to start the fight. Baphomet assesses his opponent and comes up with a battle plan against Griffin. Now it is almost impossible to win, due to the difference in strength between the heroes, so he will take a couple of blows and call it a day. Only now, Reborn's younger brother interrupts all of Baphomet's thoughts with his attack and easily knocks him onto his back. The protagonist has only one thought in his mind: not to die prematurely, because a couple of blows will not do the job. When Baphomet opens his eyes after the fall, he sees a fist flying at the speed of light straight at his face, but he manages to get his head out of the way. This brat. I felt it even when he grabbed me, but if this continues, then there won't be a wet spot left of me. Viewers assume that the reason for Griffin's rage is the name that Baphomet chose for himself, so he will have to humble himself and become a punching bag. Realizing that this cannot continue like this, our hero tries to strike at Griffin, but he easily dodges and pins Baphomet by the throat to the floor. Baphomet somersaults out of the grip and gets to his feet. He realizes that Griffin is playing with him. Receiving blow after blow, the main character begins to enjoy the strength of his opponent. Just like in the tower during the battle with Reborn, he is always happy to fight stronger enemies. Only Griffin offers to stop the battle. He says there is no point in continuing. But this behavior drives Baphomet into a rage. The level of rage in the hero's blood starts to go off the scale. Sensing danger from behind, Griffin lunges at Baphomet with a roundhouse kick, but he miscalculates his strength. Baphomet flies through the window into the pool among a dozen beautiful girls. The noise from this performance attracts the attention of everyone nearby. At the same time, Baphomet, lost in her thoughts, goes to the bottom of the pool. What a shame. I didn't think one punch would be enough, Baphomet thought. But now it's clear what Griffin is capable of. And he looks forward to the day when Griffin bows his head to him. By the way, Baphomet can't swim. So Baphomet, who cannot swim, sinks lower and lower to the bottom. He can't breathe. He's losing consciousness. An incredibly beautiful girl rushed to the aid of our drowning hero. But when she approached the guy, he ran out of air, and he grabbed her hair with all his might. This was a kind of request for help to a drowning man. The blonde's friends are standing near the pool and waiting for her to emerge with her guy. It's true that she hasn't shown up for quite some time, and then a golden hair floats to the surface of the water. This shocks the girls, and they go to call for help. Baphomet lost consciousness. Memories flashed through his mind. The still young Baphomet, who is a regular guard at the entrance to the tower, stands guard with his mate. The latter tells him to get ready for work. Baphomet doesn't realize what kind of work he's talking about. How's that? It's a good time to hunt people. At this point the nightmare ends, and Baphomet comes to his senses. When he turns round, he sees a girl. She looks like the girl who wanted to save him. The girl doesn't like his look. Baphomet still didn't understand anything. Trying to crawl away from the threat, he runs into another obstacle in the form of two girls. But then, instructors come to the scene. It turns out that the person with crimson hair is a representative of the Arch-Huntress Echidna Guild. Sung Woon tries to apologize to the Huntress, but she is not going to listen. She calls a girl named Nyo, who is now in the pool, and collecting strands of hair that Baphomet tore from the blonde's head. Watching these actions, Sung Woon realizes that a hurricane is approaching. Echidna says that he and the guild settled in for a group vacation, but this guy who fell from the sky interrupted it. So besides this, he dared to deprive their beautiful colleague of a few curls. The cost of this hair is incredibly huge, since the owner of all this is not just some girl. Therefore, the guild leader demands damages from Baphomet in the amount of 1,000,000 won per hair. And since he pulled out 116 hairs, he will have to pay 116 million won. Baphomet became very angry and indignant. Where will he get so much money from? With these words, Baphomet angered the girls from the Ark even more. Her code name is Valkyrie, C-rank Huntress. Number 1 in popularity, famous and able to sell everything that touches her body. What are they talking about and what kind of nonsense are they talking about? Asks Baphomet. Echidna interrupts the girls and asks them to stop the meaningless explanations. Echidna orders compensation for the damage so that he will not have problems with his career as a hunter in the future. Echidna says that he can compensate for the damage in parts, and if there is no money, and in the worst case, with the help of his body. Body retaliation is Baphomet's deep psychological trauma. Baphomet said that this was not his fault at all. It was the sparring organizer's fault that he flew out the window for not stopping the fight in time. And Griffin did send the guy flying through the window. Griffin's appearance caused the girls a little confusion, because if this is true, then he is also guilty. The girls don't want to spoil their relationship with the hunter. Echidna decides to check with the young hunter whether what was said is true, and receives a positive answer. Afterwards, the instructor says that there was a sparring between a beginner and an A-rank hunter, so in fact, Baphomet is not to blame for this. But the head of the Ark did not want to leave what happened just like that, so she is once again trying to put pressure on Baphomet. Then Sung Wong joins the dialogue and says that he will resolve the issue. Since they are responsible for newcomers, they are ready to pay for their mistake. However, monetary compensation goes against the code of corporate ethics, so would the guild agree to transfer one of the towers into their possession? This is a very profitable offer, because monopolizing the tower will allow the guild to receive an endless supply of stones obtained from the monsters that will appear there each time until the tower is cleared. Realizing that the offer is very profitable, the girl makes concessions and says that this should be discussed with the rest of the guild members. After literally walking away a step, standing there for a couple of seconds, she returns and accepts the deal, and Sun Wung remains satisfied with the problem being solved. Finally, the blonde comes to her senses. It turns out her name is Rhea. The girls carefully help her get up and explain the situation. Realizing that all problems have been resolved, the girls' guild leaves the debate site. Baphomet follows Valkyrie with his eyes and does not understand what is so beautiful about her. The girl winks at Baphomet and leaves with her friends. The instructors apologize to hunters for the inconvenience caused. Leaving the courtyard with the pool, Baphomet asks himself two important questions. Why are some hunters so obsessed with money, and why was the blonde winking at him? But then someone's hand appears and rips off Baphomet's blue blindfold. It turns out to be Griffin. Griffin says our hero doesn't even feel his presence. Then how did Baphomet rip the blindfold off Griffin? By the way, the blindfold is still floating in the pool. Baphomet tells Griffin that he was moving too slowly, and as if he specifically asked to have the cloth ripped off. This explanation surprises Brother Raven, because rookies just aren't capable of noticing such things. It takes combat experience. Who are you, in fact? Asks Griffin. Baphomet answers a question with a question. He says that Griffin went on emotions, challenging the main character to a fight because he took the name of the monster that killed his brother. Griffin asks him not to change the subject and to answer his question, but Baphomet continues to torment him with his conclusions. The young guy couldn't take it anymore. I just needed someone to blow off steam. Is that enough? Now, Griffin replied. Maybe you were upset that your brother was killed by Baphomet and not you? Having said that, the hero realizes he's hit the mark. He didn't feel any hatred from Griffin during the battle, but now his feelings are. During the battle, he did not feel hatred from Griffin, but now his feelings are clearly seething. Raven's brother says that's nonsense. What kind of hunter would try to kill another hunter, much less his own brother? But Baphomet contradicts him, saying that hunters are not so holy, some can even kill. Not wanting to continue talking about his brother, Griffin suggests changing the subject and asking what that aura was that was directed at him during the sparring. Only two places where you can find something like this are in dungeons and towers, and it only comes from high-ranking monsters. How can a human possess the aura of a monster? Only one explanation comes to mind. A monster hiding under a human mask. With those words, Griffin makes Baphomet laugh. Well, what an interesting toy, huh? Well, let's say I am a monster. What would you do then? Says Baphomet. Griffin says that a hunter should kill monsters without any second thoughts. Then, if I really am a monster, our relationship boils down to mutual murder. Turns out we're in the same boat. A boat where we're gonna kill each other, thought our hero. Baphomet is eagerly awaiting the day when Griffin finds out who he really is, and he really hopes that he will become stronger, otherwise he will simply die at the hands of the protagonist. The training is over. After finishing coaching, Sungwoon decided to give Baphomet a surprise and took him somewhere. Passing by old houses, the heroes reach their destination. Welcome to your new home. The building itself is huge, the backyard is eco-friendly, and the house itself is decorated in traditional Korean style. Sungwoon surmised that Baphomet might not like it, so he prepared in advance. He starts to justify the place, but Baphomet interrupts him. He says that it's very good here. Just a little work on the building and you can live. This horrifies the guild manager. Did your brains completely leak out after falling into the pool? Yes, I'm fine, leave me alone. Baphomet simply doesn't like living on the top floors of skyscrapers. He feels like he's in a cage there. Sung Wong believes in his words. He asks how his remaining days were after the instruction began. The hero replies that everything was calm, except that he constantly felt someone's gaze on his back. Even when he went to the restroom, someone was watching him. Then someone appears at the front door, and Baphomet hears the words, "Rookie, we're going to need him." Hearing this, Baphomet is frightened and decides to look at the intruder. But when he turned around, Baphomet found no one, which made the hero suspicious. Well, the presentation of the gift is over. Now it's time to get to work. There is an ideal task that suits the main character. Only now all beginners usually start working with mentors, but Baphomet will have a slightly different situation. His mentor will be the target. Then the hero offers to kill him on the spot, but alas, this is not possible. There is a suspicion that someone is behind him, and this is what a new guild member needs to find out. There is one thing. He can't kill anyone, because the target is B rank. Therefore, the people behind him may be much stronger. Baphomet's rank barely exceeds B level, and any attempt to figure it out on your own can lead to problems, or God forbid to death. Arriving at the rendezvous point, the protagonist sees a group of young hunters and also meets a mentor. This is a B-rang hunter codenamed Keech. Because of his wife, he had to become a civil servant because she wanted stability, and now he is in charge of the newcomers. The desire to smash this guy on the spot did not allow Baphomet to stand still, so he tries to hide it as much as possible. But it turns out he's not very good at it. Baphomet's goal is to get as close as possible to Keech, and then the guild will be able to catch him red-handed. Baphomet took the information he received a little incorrectly, but he realized that it was necessary to find the one who was behind this mentor. True, he doesn't yet know how to get closer to this guy. Mentor takes a group of newcomers to the gates of D-Rang and says that under his leadership they will have to clear this dungeon. An unexpected mission throws the squad into confusion. After all, they are all F-rank hunters, and they are not yet capable of such gates. Keech replies that according to the papers, F-rank hunters must clear the D-rank dungeon. They were told about this during the briefing. Monsters of ranks E and F are dealt with by automated combat weapons, so hunters deal with monsters of rank D and above. The knowledge of the main character amazes the mentor. True, Sunwoon hammered all this into Baphomet so that he could show himself well in front of his mentor. Not wanting to waste any more time, the man calls the group to follow him through the gates, only ordering them to take weapons in advance. The mentor also notes that Baphomet has no weapons, and the hero explains to him that he fights only with his fists. Strange, of course, but nothing can be done. He is the first to enter the gate, the others must follow him. As soon as the mentor disappears from the sight of the group, his comrades in arms push Baphomet and do not miss the chance to insult him. And I was wondering, why do these bastards look familiar? They were the ones who said all sorts of crap about me back then. In the dungeon, newcomers have difficulty, but they deal with the monsters. Keech stands and evaluates their abilities. All of them have weaknesses, except one. We are talking about Baphomet. He simply dodges the monsters' attacks, and sometimes even mocks them. When he gets tired of it, he quickly kills everyone. The mentor believes that this is one of the anomalous awakened ones. This is what the hunters of geniuses are called, but even so, he is still a beginner, and it is simply impossible to blame his fighting skills on his talent. After finishing the cleanup, Keech tells everyone about their weaknesses. The main character rushes from side to side and is looking for a fight with someone. But he can't get stuck in this D-Rang dungeon, where the monsters aren't even suitable as punching bags. There was, of course, the idea of fighting with the mentor, but then he might be exposed. It's strange. The group has just killed all the monsters, but the dungeon boss is not yet there. Then the man says that in order for the boss to appear, firstly, you need to demolish all the corpses of the monsters in a pile. Having collected the remains of enemies in one place, the walls of the cave begin to tremble. And second, he will smell blood. And he will appear immediately. A deadly worm. A monster that loves blood. Be careful, don't let him grab you. The boss that appears is fucking huge, and new hunters have no idea how they should deal with it without preparation. Baphomet strike legs, takes his weapon from one of the newcomers, and rushes towards the monster. They shout at him in the back that he is completely gone, because the damage will be reduced due to the system's condition for using someone else's weapon. But he ignores all these phrases. Seeing how the main character is heading towards the monster, Keech wants to stop him, but Baphomet is too fast, and he simply does not even have time to touch the guy. After leaping onto the giant worm, Baphomet cuts it down with one blow. The entire group is shocked by the strength of this hunter. In this world, there is a law. Those who are stronger, obey. This is the first rule that Baphomet learned in the human world. Of course, Baphomet made a huge impression. The girl even fell in love with him. But the only one who was not lost before speaking was the mentor. He gives our hero a standing ovation and praises his fighting style. Summarizing the results, Keech confidently declares that Baphomet did an excellent job, so he no longer needs his mentorship. After leaving the gate, the mentor reports that Baphomet can begin to work as a hunter, distributes the stones obtained from the monsters among the group, and recommends selling them. Wait, says Baphomet. He suggested that the boss was weak. Only from the faces of the newcomers could one read that this was impossible. The training is over. Keech says he was glad to work with Baphomet and wishes him luck. Left alone with himself, Baphomet realizes that he has now failed very badly in completing the task. Then a girl from the group approaches him and asks him for his phone number. Returning to the leader, Baphomet told about his attempt, but he said that everything was fine. Sun Wonun expected something like this. Apparently this is too difficult a task for a beginner. However, there is a simpler task. You urgently need to get rid of a criminal hunter of C rank. The method to get rid of the target. Anyone can choose Baphomet. But since the main character was damn angry because of the failure of the task, he chose a simple but very workable method. He simply cut off the hunter's head. You can easily get rid of the body. Just take it to the dungeon and kill the boss. Then it will disappear along with the dungeon. Having completed the task, Baphomet leaves the dungeon with a calm soul. His plans are to exchange stones for money and have a good snack. Only a failed task does not allow him to calmly enjoy victory. He must definitely complete this task. True, it's now impossible to get close to Keech, so the main character decides to go undercover. Perhaps he will be able to find out this person's connection with criminals in this way. And Baphomet decides to continue observing his former mentor. But continuing to watch him, nothing strange happens. Then Baphomet decides to follow the man all the way home. The hero is already filled with rage because this guy is not showing any signs. If they were in a less prosperous area, he would have cut off Keech's hand. And then he simply extracted information from him. Could this be done? Baphomet asked himself. No. Alas, they are now in the human world, and such actions will not go unnoticed. And at the moment of Baphomet's thoughts, suddenly Keech takes off and heads somewhere very quickly. The main character decides to follow him and sees that the man has met his wife. He was very worried why the girl didn't pick up the phone. Not deciding to listen to the answer, Keech simply hugs her to himself and says that he was very worried, after which they went home for dinner. Finally, the hunter's weak spot has been found. Arriving home, Keech finds his wife with Baphomet. Baphomet, for his part, pretends to be surprised to meet his former mentor, R. It turns out that Baphomet saved Hyuna of the car, but was injured himself and refused to go to the hospital. Therefore, the girl offered to treat his wounds at home. The main hero looks at the couple's house, but Keech grabs his hand. Keech is very grateful for saving his wife. But purely by chance, did Baphomet remember the license plate number of the car? Hyuna asked the hero to have dinner with the couple as a sign of her gratitude for saving them. Baphomet did not refuse because he was very hungry. That way he can learn more about his opponent. As he eats the food offered by Hyun-Ah, he tries to catch as many details as he can, but so far the only thing bothering him is the strange feeling he gets from the woman. Quiche asks Baphomet how his work as a hunter is going. Baphomet says that it's hard because someone released him very quickly. But then the conversation is interrupted by the sound of a breaking plate. Quiche asks his wife if she's all right. The girl replied that she was fine, apologized for the noise, and told them to ignore her and continue their conversation. Looking at Quiche, Baphomet finally realized everything. Baphomet tells the hunter that he has already lost his wife once. Confused by what was said, Quiche asks Baphomet again, but he asks to give him the paper. He says he remembered the car number. In fact, this woman has been dead for a long time. Quiche begins to talk. We have always been together. In primary school, in middle, and even all the senior classes. We sincerely believed that the wedding would allow us to be together forever. But when man awakened, he became the hunter. This worried the young wife very much, and she was afraid of losing him. Quiche dreamed of becoming a high-ranking hunter and living without denying his family anything. But his wife asked him if that's what he really wanted. They don't need a lot of money to be happy. The young wife just wants her husband to return home safe and sound. Then Quiche refused to be a hunter and became a mentor. One day at work, they were given a teleportation device. It needs to be used if the gate is broken through. Then it can transport you to the nearest shelter. Quiche understood that his wife needed this device more than he needed it, so he gave it to the woman. And he strictly ordered to use it as soon as something dangerous happens. Time passed, and it seemed that the peaceful days would last forever. However, nothing can be good for so long. After some time, the gate was broken. The girl was just on the street that day. That's when she remembered the device she had. But she was never able to move to shelter. On that day, a neighbor girl was attacked by an orc in the street, and Hyun-Ah decided to help her. She distracted the orc's attention, grabbed the girl, and ran away. Only because of carelessness, she tripped, and the device fell out of her purse. Having seen this device, the rescued girl already knew what to do with it. She activated it, and was transported to a safe place. And Hyun-Ah had to be left alone with the monsters. And that day, she definitely died. Baphomet asks himself what her husband did to her, and how she is still alive. Checking the information that Baphomet provided, Quiche decided to make sure that it was correct with the company that rented the car. There, he also found out the address where the driver who was driving the car lived. When he arrived at the address and went inside, the man saw his wife standing at the window. The hunter was surprised and asked his wife what she was doing there. Baphomet appeared out of the darkness and said that he guessed that the hunter would come to this place. Baphomet said that he has no idea how Quiche got involved with crime, but now Baphomet knows what the hunter received in return. Baphomet told Hyun-Ah that she was dead, and then she immediately lost all her vitality and became like a zombie. While telling the story, the main character wouldn't stop touching Quiche's wife, wanting to piss him off. Baphomet pushes the lifeless body towards the open window. A man screams out his wife's name, falls to his knees, and begins to sob. She's dead. Baphomet asks the hunter, how long can one feign universal grief? With his weapon drawn, Quiche no longer wants to see Baphomet in front of him and is about to kill him. Well, finally a fight. Otherwise, Baphomet is already bored. Unfortunately, Quiche needs to be brought in alive, but you can cut off one arm in a fight, right? Two anomalies clashed in battle. Baphomet used his dagger to fight Quiche, who, in turn, uses a spear. It is logical to assume that at an average distance Baphomet should lose, but he calmly blocked every thrust of the spear. But don't forget that a man is slightly inferior in strength to a guy. If you relax for a moment, you can get injured. Under the pressure of attacks, Quiche still breaks through Baphomet's defense. Immediately after this, he throws his spear straight at the enemy. But Baphomet was able to parry even such an attack. Jumping on the wall, he rushes towards the outlaw. Pushing off, he brings the dagger over the man's head. But he, in turn, calls the spear back, and in flight, the spear touches the hero's head. A moment after receiving the blow, Baphomet realized what had happened. But he was not going to relax, so he continued to attack Queech. During the fight, the man decides to tell the guy a story he already knows about his love for Hyuna. To say that they were always together, this should have continued until death. But when he saw her corpse, he just couldn't react normally to it. He specifically gave her this device so she could survive if something happened. Someone must have stolen it. Queech decided to go to the hideout and kill this man. He is confident that no one will notice another corpse while breaking through the gate. But upon arrival at the place, he saw only the ruins of the shelter. Queech realizes that Hyun-ah is destined to die. Hunter decided they should always be together, and he found a way to bring her back to life. Baphomet cuts off a man's arm. Having lost his arm, Queech cannot continue the battle, and Baphomet standing over him says that he's seen people ruled by feelings before, and they all lost because the moment they let their emotions take over, those idiots didn't realize that the battle was already over. Having finished his speech, the main character with a scary face continued to look intently at Queech, until the moment he realized that this whole battle went by so quickly that Baphomet needs more blood and wants to cut off the hunter's leg. But Queech wants to find out who his opponent really is. After all, Baphomet had nothing to do with the relationship between a man and his wife. So why did he get involved in someone else's life? And then it dawns on the protagonist that he didn't initially introduce himself, that he was in the business of catching hunters of criminals. But Queech doesn't realize what he has done wrong. Queech goes on to argue that his wife should have survived the gate breach and asks, "Is it wrong to rescue those who survived?" Listening to all this nonsense, Baphomet can't take it anymore. He shouts at Queech because he was only talking about pathetic excuses. Baphomet, of course, does not know what exactly the criminal did, but he clearly acted under someone's direction, and there's nothing he can do about it. So stop hiding behind the mask of a good, caring, and loving husband. Or does this man dare to feed evil with such a strange attitude? Then the hero will have to kill him. The former tower boss is not going to listen to excuses about the murders. Everyone must be aware of the actions they are committing. Meanwhile, the monster that was hiding in Hyuna's dead body awakened. He felt an alluring smell, the smell of blood. Raising a dagger over the man's head, the hero is distracted by a pop-up message from the system. Attention! Due to a system error, a monster has been noticed. Nearby hunters must immediately destroy the monster. But before Baphomet has time to understand what the system's message means, the wall behind him is destroyed by a monster's huge hand. Watching this, Queech notices his wife in the hole from the destroyed wall. Only now she is part of a giant purple creature. He calls her name and tries to find out what happened to her, and in response, he hears only the roar of this creature. "Monster wants to eat. Give him blood." The monster opens its mouth and a dozen terrifying eyes stare at the Queech, and the face of his wife acquires an insane smile, losing all humanity. Queech still doesn't believe the picture unfolding in front of him. What happened to his love? Baphomet says, "What worm dares to trespass on my prey?" I cuts off one of the monster's tentacles. The purple substance begins to scream in pain and call for his mother, and Queech still screams the name of his dead wife. Activate Baphomet's passive skill. Rage. Baphomet asks Queech how much this creature resembles his wife. Baphomet heads towards the monster. Having experienced unforgettable pain, the creature is going to kill the main character. Dodging the monster's attack, Baphomet continues to study this creature. Even the former boss of one of the towers is sick of the energy emitted by this monster. Taking off from the ground, the main character slams his dagger into the monster's carcass. Moving along the tentacle, he notices a mouth with eyes. Baphomet suggests that this is his weak point. Having pushed off, he jumps into the monster's mouth and begins to destroy it from the inside. Queech just watches as holes appear in the creature's body, from which blood bursts out in a strong stream. A moment later, the monster's body is torn into pieces. Having delivered the final blow, Baphomet cuts off the monster's head, and it falls in front of the sitting Queech. Realizing that he can't take it anymore, Queech begins to wail at the loss of his loved one. Baphomet rolls out the last remnants of the purple substance. Dire consequences await those who crave power. Since the main character spent too much energy on all these battles, The berserk debuff is again applied to him, awakening a thirst for blood. But it's okay. He was going to kill Queech anyway, so he lunges towards the man. Almost reaching the goal, the system displays an error. Activated. Blocking. As a result, the exhausted Baphomet falls right in front of Queech. Due to overuse of skills, your body has reached the 99% limit. The system reports. Baphomet's body is suspended until the threat is reduced. Another message from the system has arrived. The distraught Queech curses the main character. He says that if Baphomet had not intervened, Hyun-ah would not have found herself in this situation. Gathering his strength, Queech strikes. Baphomet asks the system, "Why is she doing this to him? Does she really want to destroy him?" The system replied that it was protecting Baphomet. Suddenly, Sung-woon appears and breaks Queech's weapon of revenge. Such a leader's arrival confuses the guy. Sung-woon apologizes to the man, calling him Quartz, and slams him into the wall. He loses consciousness and falls to the ground. What a mess, the boss said, and turning to Baphomet, he said that he had found significant evidence of why the mentor was involved in crime. Sung-woon thanks Baphomet for the job done. Now he can rest. The guild will take care of the rest. But these were not the words Baphomet wanted to hear. He didn't want this result at all. His goal was to kill Queech, but he couldn't do it because of the damn system window. If he were stronger, this guy would already be dead. Is the injury really so serious that Baphomet has already been given a tranquilizer? Sung-woon believes that the guy has a serious injury. He kept muttering about some hand. The interrogation of Queech began in the car on the way to the department. The boss asked what kind of ability makes monsters out of inanimate people. Sung-woon addresses the chained man in the back seat of the car, asking him who turned his wife into a monster. After a pause, Queech replies that he learned from rumors about a team that was created to capture criminal hunters. But he is very surprised that it is Sung-woon who is the head of this unit. He understands that this is very hard work. Sung-woon agrees with this statement, and once again asks Hunter Quartz to tell him everything he knows and who he reports information about the newcomers to. Because most of the rookie hunters that Quartz trained either disappeared or were found dead. Even if he did this in exchange for the resurrection of his wife, one way or another such actions are a crime. In response, the man simply remains silent. Well, it's okay. There's still time to get the truth out of him, Sung-woon decides. But then the driver reports that the brakes have stopped working, and the same monster that turned Hyun-ah into a monster appears behind Quartz. The monster continues to envelop Quartz's body, and the car crashes into another car due to brake failure. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the monster slowly crawls away from the scene of the accident. He sees a cat, and without wasting any time, inhabits it. Climbs into the open window of the apartment, and displays the dossier of the hunter Baphomet on the tablet. Now a criminal gang is interested in the main character. Slowly Baphomet comes to his senses. It's just hard for him to breathe. Some pressure in the chest area. Opening his eyes, he sees a white cat resting on him. Baphomet has already seen this white cat. And then Baphomet heard a voice from his past. The voice asked that number 302 has already woken up? After all, there is only one person in this world who calls him that. A female doctor approaches the patient and tells him how long it has been since she has seen him. Is he well? Pay with your body. A terrible picture of the past. Baphomet screams across the room and pushes the woman away from him. It's the same rogue. Baphomet asks what's going on and where is he. The doctor replies that he was injured and had to go to the hospital, and reminds him that he still owes her a great debt. The guy says that he doesn't know anything about it. But that's not the most interesting thing. The woman surprised him by the fact that the doctor and the head of the guild knew each other quite well. By the way, she says that Baphomet's body now looks even better than before. Baphomet resists and screams that he won't let her abuse him. She asks him to shout more quietly. People might misunderstand the words he said. And they are alone in the room now. And Baphomet cannot even lift a finger normally after the battle. So no one will stop her from doing whatever she wants. A man walks up to the receptionist's desk. He greets the girl and asks, "Where is Chae-Ming-woo now?" That's Baphomet's name when he's not working. The administrator replies that he knows where he is, but is primarily interested in why the man looks so rumpled, as if he had been in an accident. But the pleasant conversation is interrupted by the cry of a man from the ward. Reacting to the noise, the man turns around and looks to see what happened. The man is Sung Woon, who came to visit the main character. Baphomet let out a terrible cry. Manager Sung Woon watches the picture of Baphomet losing his last strength to life, and the doctor sits over him and laughs. The doctor laughs and says that she really likes teasing the young man. Baphomet asks Sun Wung if he is going to deceive him too. But the head does not understand what the main character is talking about. Baphomet explains that he learned from the doctor that the manager and the crook know each other, which means they may have similar plans for him. The man tries to explain to the guy that all this was in the past. He actually knows this woman. They used to be colleagues. And yet Baphomet believes that the government wants to exploit him. However, after a while, the hero notices that the leader is in a bad mood. He decides to stop talking and ask why Sun Wong isn't feeling well. The man is glad that Baphomet has finally noticed, and he reveals that Quartz is dead. The monster boss behind it all got rid of the unnecessary witness. Sung Wong explained how they had an accident, and how they only found a couple of half-eaten pieces left from Quartz's body. Seong Wong has already seen a similar monster before, and is sure that somewhere there is a hunter-magician who is capable of resurrecting the dead. If you catch him, you can contact the leader. But the story is interrupted by the angry Baphomet. Hearing that the idiot Quartz died and not by his hand infuriates the hero. He worked like a horse so that Sung Wong would take and lose everything at the last moment. The head tries to apologize, but Baphomet is not going to listen to him anymore. The main character says that he will figure everything out himself, just don't bother him. However, the manager reminds him that the guy's current level of strength is very low to fight such an opponent. Even Sung Wong could not notice the leader of the criminals hiding his presence. This means that the hunter is close to C rank. Baphomet angrily asks the boss that maybe the boss didn't have enough strength. If he were in the place of the boss, he would have felt the threat and dealt with it. But these phrases piss Sung Wong off. He grabs Baphomet by his clothes and tells him to respect the chain of command. Without going any further, listening to insults addressed to you, the drooping Baphomet leaves the ward and goes to the exit. Sung Wong tries to stop him, but the hero shows with his gesture that he is not going to continue the conversation with him. The doctor, observing this, wonders what happened. The manager replies that they were just blowing off steam at each other. By the way, he remembers the story told by Baphomet and decides to ask the girl if she really stole the main character's money under the pretext of treatment. The doctor pretends that he doesn't understand what he's talking about. But Sung Woon has known her for several years now, so he is going to report this to the government. However, the girl asks him to stop, because he had good reasons to do so. Once the government sent her another young man covered in blood, they said that it didn't matter to them whether she saved this man or killed him. When the doctor took a closer look, she recognized the guy who was shown on TV. She is sure that this was another attempt by the authorities to create a hunter hero. And it happens all the time. Baphomet isn't the first to suffer from it. Sung Woon interrupts the girl's monologue, because he's a government dog after all, so let him watch his mouth. The doctor didn't believe Sung Woon's words, and asked if he was really a government dog, or a wolf hiding his fangs. Somehow, the clinic staff was able to save the guy, but not everyone can withstand such treatment, and the doctor was very worried that the boy wouldn't cope. But then a notification window from the system popped up in front of her. However, its color was not blue as usual. The color of the window was red, and the contents were different from the standard ones. This wasn't like all the mediocre assignments we'd had before. This was an order. Save the young man at all costs, or the doctor dies. Therefore, Kim Yun-sung, as the best surgeon, made every effort to save the guy. Sun Wong doesn't understand what her friend is talking about. Did the system really threaten the user? The girl confirms what was said. This is also the first time this has happened to her, which is why she invented the debt to force Baphomet to work for her. That way, she could find out more information about him. The system threatened her with death. However, such events even seemed very romantic to Yun-sung, and she got the feeling that the system really loved number 302.